I never told my wife I used to kill people for a living. She thinks I'm a quiet man, the kind who wakes early, trims hedges, and pays his taxes ahead of time. I kiss her on the cheek before dawn, take our Labrador for a walk, and wave to the neighbors like I belong here, but I don't. Once, I was the shadow men feared in dark corners of the world. A name no one knew, a face burned into the memories of the dying. My job didn't come with medals or retirement parties, just missions and silence. When I met her, I thought I could hang it up, bury that life under a picket fence and grocery lists. She knows I served in the Marines, believes the war ended for me when I came home, but I never really came home. She thought I was just a ghost from the war. She had no idea I still answered when the dead called. It was supposed to be one more favor. A message passed, a warning delivered. Clean, simple, no blood. But nothing in that world stays clean. One favor turned into two, then three, and then someone knocked on our door who shouldn't have known where I lived. Now my wife is asking questions, and I'm running out of lies. The mornings in our neighborhood are quiet. Birds chirp, sprinklers hiss, and retirees shuffle past with coffee and leash terriers. I brew 2 cups of dark roast, one for me, one for Claire. She always gets the mug with the chip in the handle. Says it reminds her things don't have to be perfect to be loved. Claire is a middle school art teacher. Soft hands, steady eyes, zero interest in politics or war. She thinks I left the Marines after a roadside bomb nearly took my leg. Which, to be fair, is true, but she doesn't know I stayed on after that. Not in uniform, not officially. Now I mow the lawn in even rows. I fix our gutters before she asks. I go to neighborhood cookouts and pretend I care about propane prices and HOA bylaws. But I still get the emails. Not many. Just a few lines of code disguised as spam. I delete them before she wakes up. Sometimes I don't sleep at all. Just sit on the back porch with a glass of bourbon, watching the woods, waiting. The calls come late. I keep my phone silenced, the ringtone set to buzz against my wrist. Claire doesn't ask who it is. She trusts me. She thinks I'm healing, that I'm whole. But I haven't been whole since Kandahar, since the name in the dossier belonged to someone I knew. It's peaceful here. But peace is just the lull before the shot, and I know better than to get comfortable. The first time I took a life, it was almost an accident. I had been in Afghanistan for 6 months, a sniper tucked into the mountains near coast, the target a mid-level Taliban commander. The plan was simple. Wait for him to show himself, take the shot, and disappear. It's the way we're trained, the way I've always worked. Methodical, silent, surgical. I don't remember the exact moment I pulled the trigger, but I remember the stillness that followed. There was no rush of adrenaline, no sense of triumph, just the emptiness of a job well done. The man's body fell, crumpling like paper, and the wind carried his life away. That's the thing about killing for a living. It doesn't feel like you expect. It's like you're not even there. Just a whisper in the distance, a shadow passing across someone's final moment. I learned how to vanish, how to blend into the backdrop until I wasn't even a thought anymore, how to kill before anyone even knew what had happened. After a while, it became more than just combat. It became a second nature, a reflex. When I left the Marines, the government didn't let me go quietly. Instead, I was recruited by the FBI's Black Ops division. They wanted my skills, wanted the man who could disappear in plain sight, the one who knew how to manipulate people with nothing but a few words and a steady gaze. My first assignment was an assassination in Mexico City, a cartel leader whose connections ran too deep for the law to touch. The mission was clear. Kill him. Make it look like an accident. I spent 2 days shadowing him, learning his habits, his patterns, his morning jog, the way he'd stop at the same corner for coffee every day. The kill was clean. The body was gone before anyone knew it was even missing. But it wasn't always that simple. There were the high-risk undercover assignments. The long weeks spent infiltrating criminal organizations. No backup, no extraction plans, just me and a false identity. I became someone else, every time. Another name, another face, another set of lies to fit the role. I learned to live in the cracks between truth and fiction, and I learned how to make the lies stick, how to lie so convincingly that even I could believe it. The first time I lied to Claire, I told her I was just a wounded soldier, that I'd left the war behind, but there were always new missions, new faces, new dangers that kept me on edge. Always a call to answer, always a life to take. I was good at it, too good. I could stand in a room full of people, make them feel like they were the only ones who mattered, and walk out without a second glance. I could sit across from a target and watch the sweat bead on their forehead, then make the kill without a flicker of hesitation. I'd slip in and out like a ghost, never leaving a trace. And Claire? She never knew the man I was. She saw what I wanted her to see. A quiet, broken veteran who'd put the war behind him. I could lie to her because I had honed the art of deception. I knew how to make the past vanish behind a smile, behind a touch. I thought I could keep it buried. But you can only keep a secret for so long before it starts to bleed through the cracks. I was in the kitchen, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, when it happened. Claire was in the other room, flipping through her art supplies, getting ready for the new semester. A quiet Saturday morning, the kind we both treasured. I hadn't heard from the agency in weeks, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I could stay out of the game for a while. Then came the notification. It wasn't a call. Number this time, it came through an encrypted news feed, the kind you only find if you're still plugged in. A random string of numbers and letters that, once decoded, led to a live broadcast. A voice that should have been long silenced. I stopped mid-sip. "Breaking news," the anchor's voice said. Bland as ever, but I couldn't focus on her. The words coming through the feed hit like a hammer. Reports confirm the appearance of former war criminal and known target of the CIA, Joseph Keller. Keller, believed to have been killed in 2010 during an assassination mission, has reportedly resurfaced under the new identity of John Malcolm, now a prominent businessman in Washington, D.C. Joseph Keller. The name landed like a stone in my stomach. I hadn't thought about Keller in years. He was the kind of target you only ever got one shot at. A warlord with ties to multiple extremist groups across the Middle East responsible for the deaths of dozens, if not hundreds, of innocent civilians. My mission had been simple. Eliminate him before he could fuel the insurgency any further. I remembered the heat of the desert, the tension of the mission briefing, how the moment I pulled the trigger and saw his body fall, it was supposed to be over. Done. A job checked off the list. Except, apparently, not. The report continued, but I couldn't focus on the details. I had to fight the urge to vomit. Keller was alive. And now he was posing as someone else, someone who had slipped through the cracks of intelligence. The agency must have missed him, just like I had, all those years ago. And then, the realization hit me. If Keller was alive, then that meant someone else could be too. Someone from the shadows. Someone who'd been watching. Waiting. I'd killed people before. But there were always consequences. And someone always knew. That someone could be coming for me now. I dropped the mug, watching it shatter against the tile floor. The noise snapped me out of my daze. "Everything okay?" Claire called from the living room. She had no idea what was happening, what I'd just learned, what had just been triggered. I tried to calm myself. I couldn't let her know. Not yet. I wiped my hands on a towel, trying to regain some composure, but my mind was already racing. What if Keller wasn't the only one resurfacing? What if there was a bigger conspiracy I'd missed? My old team could be compromised too. Or worse, people who knew me before could be looking for answers or payback. My phone buzzed against the countertop. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. It was an encrypted message. "Re-engage. Eliminate. Quietly. Your cover is already compromised. Do not leave a trace." It was the agency. They had found me. I was being pulled back in. They knew my life was in danger now too. The past was never gone. It was just waiting to surface when I least expected it. And if Keller was out there, someone else could be too. Someone who had seen my face. Someone I thought was dead. I glanced at the door, but it was locked. Secure. The house was still quiet. Claire hadn't heard the buzz, but I had heard it, and I knew what came next. I turned back to Claire, forcing a smile. "Just spilled some coffee. Nothing to worry about." She didn't seem to suspect a thing, but I couldn't lie to her forever. Not now. I needed to move fast. I couldn't let my past tear apart the life I'd worked so hard to build. But the shadows had already found me, and I had to find them first. I started locking drawers. Not the big obvious ones, just the small, forgettable spaces. The lower file cabinet, the desk in the garage, the false bottom toolbox I used to keep my backup piece. I told myself it was precaution, just habit. But deep down, I knew better. Claire noticed. She didn't say anything at first, but I caught the look. A shift in her eyes when I left for a run at 10:30 p.m. The hesitation when I pulled away from her kiss a little too fast. I was more careful with my words, my schedule. But no matter how much I tried to pretend, something had already changed. She wasn't just looking at me anymore. She was watching me. The breach came 3 nights later. I was out tracking Keller's alias, John Malcolm, staking out one of his shell companies tucked behind a luxury real estate front. My feeds were clean. Entry points scouted. Cameras rotated every 43 seconds. The rhythm of old work returned like muscle memory. I came home around 3 a.m., slipping through the back door as quietly as I could. The porch light was still on. Claire was sitting at the kitchen table, barefoot in one of my old hoodies. Her eyes were locked on the object in front of her. A photograph. It was old, a surveillance still, blurry infrared. Me kneeling beside a body with a suppressed pistol still in hand. Kandahar, 2011. I thought I'd destroyed every copy. Behind it, a Glock 19, and a dossier sealed in a folder marked, Burn after Read. I hadn't meant to leave it out. I was rushing when I left, and this time, rushing had consequences. She looked up at me with a mix of fear and fury. Who are you? My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I'd talked my way out of cartel standoffs, sold false identities to warlords and billionaires. But right now, in my own kitchen, I didn't have a single good lie left. It's not what you think, I managed. Useless words. I think my husband has a second life, she said, standing now. I think I don't know who's been sleeping next to me for the last 5 years. You do, I said. You know me. I promise you do. This is from before. Before us. She stared hard. But it's not over, is it? No answer. Just silence thick enough to choke us both. I wanted to tell her everything, but I still didn't know who I could trust. And if Keller knew where I lived, she wasn't safe. Not from him, not from the agency, not from any of it. So I lied again. I'll explain soon. Just not yet. She didn't nod, didn't speak. Just turned and walked upstairs without another word. And I went back to the garage, sat in the dark, and watched Keller's building on my laptop screen. Movement. A light. A shadow too familiar to be coincidence. 2 lives. One collapsing and the other closing in. I'd known for days she was going to follow me. I'd seen the way she lingered at the kitchen window after dinner, the way she'd tap her fingers against her coffee cup in the mornings. She didn't trust me anymore, and I couldn't blame her. But I never thought she'd take the step of shadowing me. I was in the car, watching the entrance of Keller's compound, when I saw her car in my rearview mirror. She'd been tailing me for miles, keeping her distance, trying to blend into the rhythm of late-night traffic. My stomach twisted. It wasn't safe. Not for her. Not for anyone. But I couldn't risk losing her either. I pulled over just off the main road, hoping she wouldn't see me, hoping maybe I could keep her safe for one more night. But she followed, pulling up right behind me. The engine died with a soft click, and I saw her face in the rear view, a mixture of determination and fear. She knew. I should have left then, told her to go home, told her to forget everything. But the words wouldn't come. I just sat there, hand on the door handle, waiting for her to make the first move. She got out of the car. "Tell me what's going on, Paul," she said, her voice steady, but her eyes screamed something else. Something broken. I stepped out, forcing a calmness I didn't feel. "This isn't your fight. I told you." "Then stop lying to me." Her voice cracked with the words, "Who are you? What are you really doing? What's going on with these people?" I opened my mouth to say something, to tell her it was over, that I could protect her. But before I could speak, the night shattered. Gunfire erupted from the trees. Fast, loud. 4 shots in rapid succession. I barely had time to react. I shoved her to the ground, adrenaline flooding my veins as I spun toward the sound of the gunfire. In an instant, I was on the move, slipping into the shadows, already reaching for my sidearm. Claire was trying to push herself up, but I didn't have time to explain. Another burst of fire, and I felt the sharp bite of a bullet grazing my side. A reminder that my past had finally caught up with me. Without thinking, I was up, moving fast, drawing my gun and firing back. 2 men, no, 3, were closing in, each one wearing tactical gear, faces hidden under hoods. But I recognized the movement. They were pros. Ex-military, just like me. Someone had gotten close, too close. I took them down, one by one, the shots clean and quick. There was no hesitation, no panic, just cold precision. I moved like a shadow, keeping low, never giving them a chance to breathe. I was the ghost I used to be, the one who could disappear and leave no trace. When it was over, the only sound was the wind rustling through the trees, and Claire's breathing, fast, shallow, panic-stricken. She was still on the ground, eyes wide, staring at the bodies, at the blood pooling around them. I dropped to my knees beside her, pulling her into my arms before she could speak. "You need to get up. Now." She pulled away, her face pale, her hands trembling. What did you just do?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I grabbed her wrist, pulling her to her feet, urging her toward the car. The mission was still on. Keller's location was too important. I couldn't just leave. But I knew I couldn't take her back home either. She had seen it now. The truth was out in the open. "Get in the car," I ordered, voice tight. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. Her eyes were wild, but the tears weren't far behind. "I saw you. You killed them. You killed them like it was nothing." I didn't know what to say to that. "I had no choice," I said finally, my voice low, but not for her. For me. They were going to kill us. They were already trying to kill us. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice a mixture of heartbreak and disbelief. You're not the man I married, Paul." Her words hit harder than the gunfire. I could see it in her eyes. The love, the trust, all of it was slipping away, falling apart in front of me. I wasn't the man she thought I was. I never had been. I had only been playing the part of the husband, the quiet vet, the man who planted flowers and read the paper. But that man didn't exist. I looked at her. The woman who had been my anchor, my reason to try and live a normal life. And for the first time, I wondered if it was even worth trying to save her from the chaos of my past. "I'm sorry," I said. "I never wanted you to see this." "Then why didn't you tell me?" she shouted, breaking down, the tears finally streaming down her face. "Why didn't you tell me who you really are?" The sound of sirens in the distance jerked me back to reality. They were coming. The authorities. The cleanup crew. I grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the car. "We need to go. I'll explain everything. I'll make it right." But there was no making it right. Not anymore. She didn't move. Didn't follow. Her eyes were empty now. The illusion had shattered. "You're a ghost," she whispered, her voice hollow. "And ghosts don't get to be saved." I had no answer for her. The safe house was a run-down cabin tucked into the woods outside Langley, buried beneath decades of dust and government secrets. No neighbors, no cell signal, just silence and old memories. Claire hadn't spoken since we left the ambush site. She sat curled on the edge of the moth-eaten couch, arms wrapped around her knees, staring into the cold hearth like it might offer answers. I didn't sit. Couldn't. I stood by the window, watching shadows for signs of a tale I knew wouldn't come. We were clean. For now. But it wasn't the men in the woods that had broken her. It was me. "Say something," I finally said, my voice hoarse from hours of silence. She didn't look at me. "What do you want me to say?" "Anything. Scream. Yell. Tell me I'm a monster. Just don't sit there like I'm already dead." Her eyes flicked to mine, red-rimmed, hollow. Was any of it real? The question landed like a gut punch. "The dinners," she said. "The long walks. Sunday mornings. That night you cried when my father passed. Was that the act or the man?" "It was me," I said. "All of it. Every second with you was real. You lied to me for 5 years. I protected you for 5 years. She stood now, slowly, like her bones had aged a decade. You protected me by turning our marriage into a lie. No, I said, stepping forward. I protected you from them, from the world I came from, the world I thought I'd left behind. I made a choice the day I met you to put all of that behind me, to be someone else, someone better. But you weren't, she said. You didn't change, you just hid. She wasn't wrong. I couldn't risk you knowing, I said quietly, because if you knew, they'd use you, just like they've used everyone else I ever cared about. You think that makes this better? Her voice cracked. That I was safer living in a lie? Watching you disappear at night? Finding a gun under the sink? Seeing you kill like you were brushing your teeth? I had no defense. I'd spent years justifying it to myself. The double life, the secrets, the silence. But none of it could undo what she'd seen. I love you, I said. That's the only truth I've ever known. She looked at me for a long time, eyes glassy and searching, maybe for the man I'd pretended to be, maybe for the part of herself that had believed in him. Then she turned, walked into the bedroom, and shut the door. She left the next morning. No screaming, no accusations, just quiet devastation. I offered to drive her back. She shook her head, said someone from her family was coming. She wouldn't look at me as she packed, wouldn't let me help carry the bag. At the door, she paused, hand on the knob. You're not who I thought you were, she said softly, but I don't think you ever really knew who you were either. Then she was gone, and the cabin felt colder than it ever had before. I went back to the house that used to be a home but now was just 4 walls and a lot of empty space. I slept in the same bed, ate at the same table, but the quiet was louder than it ever had been before. I didn't contact her, not once. The FBI kept sending messages through encrypted channels. Missions, small assignments. Nothing major, but enough to keep me in the game. I couldn't resist. The work was the only thing I knew. The only thing that kept me grounded in a world where everything else had slipped through my fingers. The life I'd tried to leave behind still had its hooks in me, deep enough to leave scars. But I was alone now. Every night I lay awake in the dark staring at the ceiling, thinking about Claire, about what we could have been, what we were supposed to be. I thought about the first time we met, the way her eyes lit up when she smiled, the way she held me after I came back from a long deployment, the way she believed in me, even when I had no idea who I was. I should have told her everything. I should have given her a chance to choose, but I'd kept her safe from the truth, even if it meant losing her forever. I couldn't bear the thought of dragging her into the life I couldn't escape. One afternoon, months later, I found myself sitting at a cafe on the edge of town, watching the world go by. The faces, the laughter, the small moments of normalcy I'd once craved. And then, I saw her, Claire. She was walking down the sidewalk with a man I didn't recognize. Someone new. Her hair was longer now, and she wore a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, but still, it was there. The kind of smile that belonged to someone who had found peace. She laughed at something he said, and I felt a sharp twist in my chest. That laugh, the one I hadn't heard in months. I stayed hidden behind the cafe window, not wanting to disturb her world, not wanting to shatter whatever fragile happiness she had found without me. I watched as they walked away, her hand in his, the two of them disappearing into the crowd. And I knew then, without a doubt, that she was safe. Safe from me. Safe from the past I could never let go of. I never contacted her, not again. She never knew the real me. I made sure she never would. That's how I kept her alive.